All right, this is lecture number 6, Empire Building in Egypt, the New Kingdom. Civilizations emerged in ancient Egypt around 3100 BC. We've already learned that ancient Egypt's history is divided into 3 main phases. The Old Kingdom period from 2660 to 2180 BC, the Middle Kingdom between 2080 and 1640 BC, and finally the New Kingdom from 1570 to 1075 BC. We already learned that massive building projects like the pyramids occurred during the Old Kingdom period. We've also learned that in between each of these kingdoms there were periods of foreign rule, which means that Egypt was part of another empire. This was the case following the Middle Kingdom. A group of invaders called the Hyksos took over Egypt from 1640 to around 1570 BC. A series of pharaohs resisted Hyksos rule and also resented the presence of other groups of people who had settled in Egypt as well, including the Hebrew peoples. The Hyksos were eventually driven out of Egypt by these pharaohs who regained control. Many of the Hyksos settled in a place called Palestine. The Hebrew people stayed in Egypt and were eventually enslaved by the Egyptians.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. Following the expulsion of the Hyksos, Egypt entered its New Kingdom period, which was characterized by empire building and the emergence of some of Egypt's most powerful and well-known pharaohs. The Egyptians developed a modern army with new technology, including chariots, archers, infantrymen, and foot soldiers. Some of the most famous pharaohs emerged during the New Kingdom period and included some powerful women. One of the most famous women to rule Egypt was Hatshepsut. Unlike prior male pharaohs who waged war to expand the Egyptian empire, Hatshepsut expanded Egypt using trade. Hatshepsut was buried in the famous Valley of the Kings, where she had her own tomb that she had built for herself while she was still alive. Later, Hatshepsut's stepson, Thutmose III, continued Egypt's expansion, except he used prolific warfare. Thutmose conquered modern-day Syria and Palestine and also gained control of a region to the south of Egypt called Nubia. A later pharaoh, Ramses II, fought a group of people called the Hittites who lived in Asia Minor, which is basically modern-day Turkey. The Hittites and Egyptians ended up signing a treaty that guaranteed peace for nearly 100 years. This is significant because it shows that Egyptian pharaohs not only used war as part of their empire-building arsenal, but also had mastered the art of diplomacy as well. When you're diplomatic, it means that you're able to talk things out and reach a mutual understanding. Now, we've already learned that the Old Kingdom period in Egypt was when all the pyramids were built. Well, New Kingdom pharaohs also engaged in wide-scale building projects, mostly palaces, temples, and tombs. The most famous of these tombs and temples are located in the Valley of the Kings, near a city called Thebes. Ramses II building projects included the Great Temple at Abu Simbel, as well as a temple built to honor Amun-Re. Many of the statues at the Great Temple are of himself. The New Kingdom period in Egypt ended when the empire was sacked by the mysterious Sea Peoples, as well as by its neighbors, the Libyans. These invasions resulted in Egypt breaking apart into smaller territories and kingdoms. Eventually, Egypt was taken over by the Nubians. It was called the Kingdom of Kush. The Nubians ruled Egypt from 2000 to 1000 BC. Because the Nubians came from the southern portion of Egypt, they introduced many other African cultures to Egypt. The Kushites, or Nubians, as they were also called, adopted much of Egyptian culture into their own. One of their most prominent kings was Pianki. Pianki's kingdom was later annihilated by a group of people called the Assyrians from what we now call Iraq. The Kushites fled south to escape the Assyrians and settled at a port city called Meroe, where they established much trade. The kingdom at Meroe lasted from 250 BC to AD 150, when it fell to an African kingdom to the south called Aksum. Thanks for listening. Bye.